The Clue Club's plane touched down on Pineview's small airstrip, the familiar sights and sounds of their hometown greeting them. The adventure in England had been thrilling, but there was no place like home. As they made their way through the town, the vibrant colours of fall surrounded them. Orange and red leaves danced in the wind, and the scent of pumpkin spice wafted from nearby cafes. Halloween was just around the corner, and Pineview was buzzing with excitement. Their first stop? Burgers and Fries, of course. The cosy diner, with its retro decor and jukebox playing classic tunes, was the perfect place to unwind and catch up. Sophie, taking a seat at their usual booth, said, "I can't believe Halloween is almost here. It feels like we just got back from our summer adventures." Chloe, looking at the Halloween decorations adorning the diner, added, "I've always loved Halloween in Pineview, the costumes, the candy, the haunted house tours." Dylan, with a mischievous grin, quipped, "and the chance to scare Max with fake spiders." Max, rolling his eyes, retorted, "Very funny, Dylan. Just remember, payback's a treat." Before the group could dive further into their playful banter, the chef from the kitchen, a burly man named Hank, came out, wiping his hands on his apron. "Hey, Clue Club, good to see you all back. But if you're looking for a new mystery, I've got one for you." Sophie, intrigued, asked, "What's going on, Hank?" Hank leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "There have been reports of a glowing swamp creature down at Pineview Lake. Kids have been seeing it during their late-night Halloween dares. They say it emerges from the murky waters, glowing in the dark, and lets out a haunting cry." Chloe, her eyes wide, said, "A glowing swamp creature? That sounds like something straight out of a horror movie." Dylan, ever the joker, added, "Maybe it's just someone who had too much glow-in-the-dark candy." Hank chuckled. "Whatever it is, it's scaring a lot of folks. Thought you kids might want to check it out." The Clue Club exchanged glances. Another mystery in Pineview? They were on the case. With the sun setting and the sky painted in hues of purple and orange, the Clue Club made their way to Pineview Lake. The water, usually a serene blue, now looked dark and foreboding under the moonlight. Max, pulling his jacket tighter against the cold, remarked, "It's a perfect night for a ghost story, isn't it?" Dylan, smirking, replied, "Or for a swim with our new glowing friend. Anyone up for a midnight dip?" Chloe, laughing, nudged him. "You first, brave one." The group's laughter echoed across the lake, but Buddy seemed less enthusiastic. The usually fearless dog kept his distance from the water's edge, his nose in the air, catching scents of nearby campfires and barbecues. Sophie, looking around, said, "You know, there are a lot of caves around this lake. Legends say they're interconnected and lead to hidden chambers." Max, intrigued, added, "Maybe our swamp creature has a lair in one of those caves." As they discussed the possibilities, a sudden movement in the water caught their attention. Emerging from the depths was a figure glowing with a soft, eerie light. Its eyes, two luminescent orbs, stared directly at them. The swamp creature had made its appearance. The group, taken by surprise, reacted in a flurry of comedic chaos. Dylan, in his haste to retreat, tripped over a stray branch, sending him tumbling backward. Chloe and Max, attempting to climb a nearby tree for safety, ended up in a tangled heap as the branch they grabbed snapped. Sophie, trying to call Buddy back, found herself face to face with the creature. But the real chase began when the creature lunged at Buddy. The dog, initially startled, turned the tables and began chasing the creature instead. With a burst of speed, Buddy pursued the glowing figure straight into one of the dark caves, both disappearing from sight. The Clue Club, regaining their composure, looked at each other in shock. "We need to find Buddy," Sophie exclaimed, determination in her eyes. Buddy emerged from the cave, tail wagging and a triumphant look in his eyes. Clutched between his teeth was a piece of thick green luminescent material. He trotted over to the group, dropping the material at Sophie's feet. Dylan, bending down to inspect it, quipped, "Looks like Buddy's found a new chew toy, or maybe he's just trying to get into the Halloween spirit." Chloe, poking the material with a stick, said, "It's like some kind of fabric, and it's glowing just like the creature." Sophie, deep in thought, remarked, "This doesn't feel like something supernatural. The way that creature lit up, and now this material. I think we're dealing with a man-made mystery." Max, nodding in agreement, added, Yeah, our swamp creature might just be someone in a costume, but why go to all this trouble to scare people? Dylan, with a smirk, said, Maybe they're just trying to make a splash in Pineview. Sophie rolled her eyes at the pun. Very funny, Dylan, but we need to get to the bottom of this. Let's talk to some of the witnesses tomorrow. Someone must have seen something that can give us a clue. Chloe, looking at the glowing material, said, And we should get this analysed. It might tell us more about our mysterious creature. As the night deepened, the Clue Club made their way back to town, their minds filled with questions and theories. The mystery of the glowing swamp creature was proving to be one of their most intriguing cases yet. The next morning, the Clue Club set out to interview the witnesses. Their first stop was Mrs. Thompson's house. Mrs. Thompson, an elderly lady with a penchant for gardening, had reported seeing the creature near her rose bushes. As they approached her garden, they were greeted by the sight of Mrs. Thompson pruning her roses. "Oh, it's you kids," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Come to ask about that dreadful creature, have you?" Sophie nodded. "Yes, Mrs. Thompson. Can you tell us what you saw?" Mrs. Thompson shuddered. "It was glowing, dear, just glowing. I was out here tending to my roses when I saw it near the garden shed. Scared the living daylights out of me. I ran inside and locked all the doors." Dylan, trying to lighten the mood, remarked, "Maybe it just wanted some gardening tips." Mrs. Thompson chuckled. "Well, it can ask like everyone else then." The group continued their interviews, but each witness had a similar story. They had seen the creature, got scared, and ran. No one had any additional information about its origins or purpose. Feeling a bit discouraged, Sophie had an idea. "Let's take this fabric to the Pineview Museum. Maybe they can shed some light on it." Max, starting the engine of the Clue Club van, joked, "Let's hope they can illuminate the situation for us." Chloe, laughing, replied, "You've been spending too much time with Dylan." The drive to the museum was filled with the group's usual banter and Buddy's excited barks. Upon arrival, they were greeted by Dr. Eleanor Mitchell, the museum's curator. Sophie showed her the fabric, explaining their encounter with the swamp creature. Dr. Mitchell, intrigued, took a closer look. Dr. Mitchell, adjusting his glasses, examined the fabric closely. "Ah, I've seen something like this before. It's a state-of-the-art material the military has been experimenting with. It's a dive suit fabric that becomes luminescent when wet. It allows divers to see each other in the murkiest of waters." Dylan, with a smirk, remarked, "So, our swamp creature is just a glow-in-the-dark diver. Talk about making a deep-sea fashion statement." Sophie, piecing things together, said, "That explains the glowing but not the motive. Why would someone be scaring people away from Pineview Lake?" Dr. Mitchell, stroking his chin thoughtfully, replied, "There's an old legend associated with Pineview Lake. It said that centuries ago, a vast treasure was hidden deep within its waters, accessible only through a series of underwater channels. But it's just a legend, and many have searched for it without success." Max, intrigued, asked, "Do you think someone might be using the legend to their advantage, scaring people away to search for the treasure undisturbed?" Chloe added, "It's possible. With fewer people around the lake, it would be easier to conduct a secret search." Sophie nodded. "We need to investigate this further. Let's head back to Burgers and Freeze and come up with a plan." As the Clue Club left the museum, the pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together. The legend, the glowing suit, the scared townsfolk, it all pointed to a treasure hunt. At Burgers and Freeze, the group settled into their favourite booth, the scent of freshly cooked burgers filling the air. Buddy, nose twitching, tried to sneak a fry from the table. Dylan, laughing, said, "Looks like Buddy's on a treasure hunt of his own." As they discussed their next steps, the Clue Club knew they were on the brink of uncovering another Pineview mystery. With a newfound sense of determination, the Clue Club decided to camp out by Pineview Lake that night. They were convinced that the so-called swamp creature was just a person in a glowing dive suit, and they were determined to unmask the imposter. Max, setting up a tent, remarked, "It's like a stakeout, but with marshmallows and campfires." Chloe, lighting the campfire, replied, "And hopefully without any actual swamp creatures." Dylan, trying to inflate an air mattress, quipped, "If this creature shows up, I hope he's good at setting up camp. This mattress is giving me a harder time than any mystery we've solved." Sophie, chuckling, said, "Focus, Dylan. We need to be ready. If our hunch is right, the creature will show up tonight." As night fell, the lake took on an eerie stillness. The only sounds were the gentle lapping of water against the shore and the distant hoot of an owl. The group took turns keeping watch, with Buddy on high alert, ears perked up for any unusual sounds. Hours passed, and just as they were starting to doubt their plan, a soft glow began to emerge from the water. The luminescent figure of the swamp creature slowly made its way towards the shore. Dylan, whispering, said, "Showtime, gang." The Clue Club readied themselves. As the figure came closer, they could see the unmistakable outline of the dive suit. With a coordinated effort, they sprang into action. Max and Chloe approached from the left, Sophie and Dylan from the right, effectively cornering the creature. With a swift move, Max lunged at the figure, trying to pull off the mask. The creature, taken by surprise, stumbled backward, revealing a face that was all too familiar. The Clue Club stared in shock as the familiar face of Dr. Mitchell, the museum curator, was revealed beneath the mask. The glowing dive suit, now just a piece of cleverly designed equipment, lay discarded on the ground. Dylan, raising an eyebrow, remarked, "Well, I guess the museum business doesn't pay as well as it used to, huh?" Sophie, her voice filled with disappointment, said, "Dr. Mitchell, why? You knew about the legend. You even told us about it." Dr. Mitchell, looking defeated, sighed deeply. "I thought by sharing the legend with you, it would throw you off the scent. I never imagined you'd piece it all together." Max, inspecting the suit, commented, "This is quite the setup you've got here. But why go to all the trouble of scaring people with this creature get-up? Why not just search for the treasure quietly?" Dr. Mitchell looked down, avoiding their gaze. The weight of his actions seemed to press heavily on him. Dr. Mitchell took a deep breath, his shoulders slumping. "The legend wasn't ancient, as I led you to believe. A few months ago, while organising some old documents at the museum, I stumbled upon a report. It detailed a military operation from decades ago where a shipment of gold bars was lost. The report suggested that the gold might have ended up in the underwater caves of Pineview Lake." Chloe, eyes wide, asked, "So the legend of the treasure was real?" Dr. Mitchell nodded. "Yes, I found one of the gold bars during one of my initial dives. It was proof enough for me that the rest might still be down there, but I knew I couldn't search openly. The lake is a popular spot, and if word got out about the gold, there would be a frenzy." Dylan, smirking, said, "So instead of a gold rush, you gave us a ghost rush." The curator sighed. "Exactly. I thought that by creating the swamp creature, I could keep people away long enough to retrieve all the gold bars. I never intended to harm anyone, just scare them a bit." Sophie, shaking her head, said, "Dr. Mitchell, you should have come forward with your discovery. The gold could have been a great attraction for Pineview and the museum." Dr. Mitchell looked remorseful. "I realise that now. Greed clouded my judgment." Max, looking at the gold bar, remarked, "Well, at least we've solved another Pineview mystery, but this one sure had a golden twist." The town of Pineview was alive with chatter and excitement. The discovery of the gold bars and the unmasking of the swamp creature had everyone talking. But amidst all the commotion, the Clue Club had other plans. It was the eve of Halloween, and Burgers and Freeze was hosting its annual pre-Halloween bash. The diner was decked out in orange and black, with cobwebs hanging from the ceiling and carved pumpkins on every table. The jukebox played classic spooky tunes, and the air was filled with laughter and the scent of delicious food. Sophie walked in, dressed as a classic detective, complete with a magnifying glass and a trench coat. Max followed, donning a knight's armour, his face obscured by a shiny helmet. Chloe was radiant as a fairy, her wings shimmering with every step, and Dylan, ever the joker, came as a giant burger, eliciting laughs from everyone in the diner. But the star of the show was Buddy. He trotted in, wearing a little cape and fangs, looking every bit the Count Dogula of the night. However, his costume didn't deter him from his usual antics. Within minutes, he had sneaked into the kitchen, sniffing out the delicious treats. The chef, amused by Buddy's persistence, handed him a special Halloween dog treat, shaped like a bone. The gang gathered in their favourite booth, reminiscing about their latest adventure and enjoying the festive atmosphere. Dylan, taking a bite of his burger, joked, "You know, after all this, I think I prefer my mysteries served with a side of fries." The laughter echoed in the diner, and as the night wore on, the Clue Club celebrated another mystery solved and the joy of being together on Halloween Eve. The jukebox blared the iconic tune of the Monster Mash, and the Clue Club, along with the other patrons of burgers and fries, danced with glee. The atmosphere was electric, with everyone lost in the rhythm of the music and the spirit of Halloween. Suddenly, the diner's door burst open, and a frantic woman rushed in. Her eyes were wide with fear, and her voice trembled as she exclaimed, "Help! There's a group of kids being chased by a massive werewolf down by Maple Street." The music screeched to a halt, and all eyes turned to the woman. The diner was filled with a mix of gasps and murmurs. The Clue Club exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of disbelief and amusement. Dylan, still in his burger costume, quipped, "A werewolf? On Halloween? How original." Sophie, rolling her eyes, said, "Dylan, not now." Max, trying to calm the woman, asked, "Are you sure it was a werewolf? It could just be someone in a costume." The woman, catching her breath, replied, "It looked real. Those kids were terrified." Chloe sighed. "Looks like our night isn't over yet." Dylan, with a grin, remarked, "Can't we have just one night off from mysteries?" Sophie, grabbing her detective hat, said, "Not in Pineview, it seems." With a collective nod, the Clue Club prepared to head out, ready to face yet another Pineview mystery. As they exited the diner, the sound of laughter and the promise of another adventure echoed behind them.